Atakum Ramadan. Yani Ramadan has come to you, is visiting you, is knocking on your door. What kind of host are you going to be? What did you do? How on earth did you miss out? It's so much in your grasp to achieve its khair. You had to have done something crazy to have missed out.
I get older. My daughter's 8. She wants to fast, right? And we have like the tradition anyway. You start with half a fast.
That are great. So when we read the Salaf, and see how they are with Quran when the month kicks in, you're amazed, right? But the idea that you take that and prescribe that for every single Muslim and the family is incorrect, because you have completely cut out their context. Have a target that is relative, yeah, that is meaningful, that takes you out of comfort, that stretches you a bit, whatever that means.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters. Welcome to another episode of the Family Podcast with your host, Brother Adil and Brother Ahmed, our resident psychotherapist.
Yep. Assalamu alaikum.
Alhamdulillah, today we have Shaykh Farid Haibatan, the chairman of MRDF, the Muslim Research and Development Foundation, with us. Alhamdulillah, Shaykh Farid was blessed to go from the streets of Hackney all the way to the blessed city of Medina, where he studied under a tutelage of scholarship and has been a part of the Dawah scene in the UK for many years. Alhamdulillah, the Shaykh has translated a number of books, as well as being a prominent figure in changing the mindset of the Muslims in the West. And inshallah ta'ala, in this episode, we are going to focus on the family unit and the month of Ramadan, inshallah.
Sheikh, excellent to have you again. Alhamdulillah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. How are you both, mashallah?
Alhamdulillah, we're good.
All those who are watching are blessed and well, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair for having me.
Alhamdulillah, Sheikh. Pleasure to have you. So, Sheikh, we're going to start with a couple of quick icebreakers, just so the audience can get to know you a bit better. And to be honest, I'd love to hear the answer to some of these questions as well, inshallah. So, to begin with, Sheikh, imagine you could have dinner with anybody in history. So, the person can be somebody from the past or somebody who's living right now. You can't pick a prophet and you can't pick a Sahaba. Who would that be?
SubhanAllah. So that's not an easy question if you're asking just to home in on one person, right? There's so many, and especially.
Okay, give us 3 then, Sheikh. You're allowed to pick 3 people.
Okay, someone who comes to mind immediately is An-Nawawi, rahmatullah alayh. Yeah, Imam An-Nawawi. Why? Because obviously we're speaking here, the whole idea of the podcast is to influence, have impact on those who are listening. If we're speaking about impact on an ummah level, so many scholars achieve that. An-Nawawi rahimahullah is one of them. Just think about any home, any masjid, any center, you'll find his works there, from 40 hadith to Riyadh al-Salihin. Look at fiqh. He was the pinnacle of, in terms of the scholarship of the Shafi fiqh. Yeah, al-Majmu'. You look at hadith, his commentary of Sahih Muslim is the standard, commentary. It's a marvel, really. You look at Ilm al-Hadith, you look at Raqa'iq, book on Dhikar, his work is the most standard. So I guess, subhanAllah, being, in the presence of someone like that, in terms of, achieving that impact, what was it about his life? How did Allah Jalla bless him to have that impact? So he's somebody who comes to mind.
What would you ask? Sorry.
I was about to say that. Same question.
What would you ask him?
Firstly, I'd listen, because asking is a good thing, but that may narrow a benefit you may be able to get from somebody, right? So you'd solicit just information, advice from them. But if you were to put a question, try to understand aspects of his life, because that acceptance which Allah wrote for him in his works. We're speaking about somebody who lived in the 7th century, Hijri, 750 years ago. what was it about his life that gave him that acceptance? And it's something to do about sincerity, and you find his intelligence, uh, the way he thinks and writes and speaks is quite amazing. Just even the introduction of 40 Hadith. Many of us know 40 Hadith. Some of us don't even read his introduction, right? Just you have glimpses of this man, yeah, how great he was, mashallah, in that. So anything that would help a person understand, what made him stand out, questions of that nature, and you'd have to ask, what was his connection to Allah like, what, how did he spend his time, because in every field he authored, and everything he authored is like a masterpiece, and he passed away in his mid-40s. Rahmatullah alayh. Yeah, it's quite
He
amazing.
achieved a lot
Yeah,
within a very short space of time.
the barakah.
Yeah, and it makes sense your question because these are kind of fields that relate to you a little bit in terms of authorship and leadership and some of the training programs that you provide, right?
Yeah,
To help
in
people
a
excel.
minuscule way. They can't make the comparison there, but obviously the affinity is there, and the connection is there. Yes.
I find it always interesting, especially when you ask this question, is we read about people and their works and their life post achievement or post impact that we've had. So I always think, like, subhanAllah, I think some of the mashayikh, they brought this up in one of our retreats where there was, or one of the courses where they were talking about um, the impact that they were unaware of that they've had. If you, because you're meeting them now, not who they are then, but you're meeting them now. So who is the what would that person be feeling, knowing now that what they did then compared to what they're always like now, what the world is like now, and their impact.
The biggest thing I think we'd all feel this, and I'm sure we've all had, yeah, without doubt, some experiences where we haven't realized the impact we've had on another, and then it's come to light. Yeah, an immediate thing somebody would want to think about, and should, and probably most of us do, is, were we sincere at that time? My own personal one, which always hits me, is the work on Hisn Muslim, the dua book, right? Something which we did, you mentioned I was in Al Medina, we worked on, and not knowing how that would play out. And it continues to play out, subhanAllah, encounters, right? And shall I share this one encounter?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah,
So I was traveling back from Houston last year, and
that's Houston, not Houston.
yeah,
Houston.
Houston, yeah, and the plane got delayed and had to leave the airport, come back the next day, and you're upset. You have plans that things that you need to attend to when you get back. So I was a bit disappointed, but subhanallah, the next day I end up going to the airport, make sure I'm early. So I'm so early that I have plenty of time. So I find a prayer room in at the Houston airport, and I've prayed and I've sat down. And somebody comes in. He's wearing you can see a jacket, must be a worker from the airport, a vest, and he prays. And then the translation I've translated is there in the bookshelf of all places. And then he picks it up and we start talking. And but the thing is, two things. One is I was just thinking, subhanallah, it's here in this airport decades later. Was I sincere when I did that work? The impact is one thing, but getting the reward of that. One is hopeful, has optimism in that, and has husnul dhan in Allah, but it still makes you worried. And anyway, in terms of that delay, subhanallah, this is a revert from South America trying to get to Medina, applying. So was able to exchange numbers, right? Give him some contact. So I said to myself, maybe Allah Jalla made me delayed for this brother, yeah, not for any other reason, because of sincerity he had about his desire to pursue studies Allah facilitated him a means of contact. Wow. Sincerity, subhanAllah. The tale of sincerity, two ways there. Yeah.
Inshallah. I'm speechless with stories like that. I was speechless first. Some of the guests might not be aware, but mashallah, Shaykh Farid translated The Fortress of the Muslim, right? And
Fortification of the Muslim. Yes.
Fortification of the Muslim. And
Hisn Muslim,
that's a book that, that's a book that that I just found so helpful until this day. So subhanAllah, and to hear that the interaction you just had as well, it's mashallah.
When you did that, when you did that work,
Mm.
right? Did you think about, okay, let's translate this one because this has all the supplications that someone needs to make. So then we're going to stack up the ajr and we're going to, because nowadays people, mashallah, yourself, Sheikh, you remind us always to think about the different elements of good reward we can get from having multiple intentions, etc. when we're doing something. So at that stage, when you were that young, mashallah, tabarakallah, many years ago, when you were setting off to do that.
Everything is from the Fadl of Allah. Allah Jalala planned that. Not from myself in any way whatsoever. Even the work I'm involved in now, Allah Jalala, from His love, from His kindness, has put me in touch with people and opportunities that are not my doing whatsoever, and I would be lost, completely lost, without doubt. Yeah, if Allah hadn't shown that path for me and facilitated it. And that is an example of it. It was the Hisn Muslim project wasn't even my project at that time. And I just happened to get involved in editing it. Imagine, after translation's been done.
How did it happen?
And my editing, took 2 years, right? To balance it in the time, right? And obviously, I took longer than I should have. But the point is, it was not of my doing. Allah facilitated and opened that door.
How did it happen? How did you?
It's a project. It was a project from, and it's still running. The project that created it is and maybe give a shout out if you don't mind. Invitation to Islam, is the charity. It'd be lovely if you supported it. It's a UK-based charity. Works a lot in the African continent and other places, helping with the da'wah, helping students who learn, equip them with the means to carry on their da'wah and so on. So it was born from that and a publishing house in Jeddah, Darul Khair. So charitable work. And then, Hisn Muslim got translated into so many languages. And then that charity, became something a bit more formal. And the work has continued for all these decades, alhamdulillah.
But if you reflect upon that, how did you sort of find yourself in the spaces that kind of brought this opportunity to you?
Physically, I was in the space. I living amongst people who were dedicated and are still dedicated into da'wah. And again, the theme of sincerity is high. Some of these people, their sincerity towards da'wah, I haven't seen anything like it. Yeah. So I experienced the benefits of that proximity. Yeah, the benefits of that proximity. Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. I like the checks and balances aspect that you kind of mentioned there. I like all of it, but that in particular, like you're in the airport, you see this project that that you're grateful enough that Allah allowed you to participate in, and you can feel the goodness of that. There's a good feeling that comes to it. It's natural from us. It's like Allah gives us that as a motivation sometimes to do more things. But then you have those checks and balances. Was I sincere?
Those checks and balances come from the core reality of servitude. Arkanu ta'abbud, as the scholars say. There are many pillars connected to not acts of worship, to the idea of worshipping, servitude. And the primary three are those: love, fear, and hope. Fear and hope are the checks and balances. Have to have both. Yeah. So you have hope. You have hope in the reward, and it is a part of the way of the righteous, of believers, messengers, prophets, companions, to have fear of the rejection of actions. Yeah, but it's balanced with hope and good thoughts in Allah. Both of those are required. Yeah, a believer should never be only with one, because fear only leads to despair, and hope only can lead to complacency.
Are there any specific things you do to remind yourself of this, like before you get involved in projects, to like try and keep sincere? Things that we can benefit from?
It's there in your daily prayer. Yeah, you need to tap into it. Al-Fatiha. Yeah, it's the surah that you have to recite. No rak'ah is valid without it. But it's not just a technical matter. It's something to do with meaning. So Alhamdulillah contains love. Rahman ar-Rahim is hope. Malik Yawmiddin is fear. Each of those actions are induced straight away if you remind yourself of the underlying meanings and how they're supposed to stir the heart. Yeah. So that's something we need to, and it's there. We need to always be mindful of that. But here maybe is an example of how we could remind ourselves from the very beginning of Al-Fatiha.
I think that leads on to my next question, which how do we approach the blessed month of Ramadan coming up with that mindset?
With love, fear, and hope.
Yeah.
With that. That's maybe a good way how this discussion can go into that, right? If you're thinking about the ultimate preparation speech before Ramadan, the Prophet ﷺ gave it to us. We don't need to invent it. The Prophet ﷺ said, Attaining Ramadan. Imagine he's speaking to the companions at the onset of Ramadan. Attaining Ramadan. Ramadan has come to you. Shahr Mubarak, the month that is blessed. فرض الله عز وجل عليكم صيامه. He's legislated the fasting. So, and the series of points here, each one is critical. So the first one is Attaining Ramadan. Yani Ramadan has come to you, is visiting you, is knocking on your door. What kind of host are you going to be? So think about when you're receiving a host who you really are longing for. Some love is experienced there.
Yeah, for sure.
There's good hope.
A good time, yeah.
Do you have any fears?
Falling short. Doing enough.
Do you see? So imagine now that with Ramadan, yeah, the month of Quran, the month of where the best of angels descended upon the best of creation to reveal the best of messages upon the most blessed best of nights, right? Which has the best of teachings and morals and laws. Okay, so what kind of host are you going to be? It's got to be a host that is longing to see this visitor, built upon that love, hoping for all the barakah that this visitor is bringing. It's not just any kind of visitor. Prophet ﷺ immediately said, "Shahru Mubarak." Yeah, and barakah is extensive khair that settles and remains. Yeah, has the meaning of something that is huge in magnitude. Yeah, and something that really settles and remains its impact and its effect. And the Prophet mentioned what? Something about the most important right connected to that visitor. Yeah, you need to observe its fast. And then look what happens after that. Then the Prophet said three things. Yeah? He said, "Tuftahu fihi ababu sama." The doors of the heavens will be opened. وَتُغْلَقُ فِيهِ أَبْوَابُ الْجَحِيمِ. And the doors of Jahim will be closed. وَتُغَلُّ فِيهِ مَرَضَةُ الشَّيَاطِينِ. And the rebellious devils will be chained up. In other words, Allah Jalala is fixing an environment for you. Yeah? The environment is being engineered now for you. Yeah? And in a divine sense. So a reflection here is, how should we reciprocate in a worldly sense? Let's get our environment right to reap the most out of this month. So whatever it is, whatever we need to do to help us get the most out of Ramadan, let's fix it now in the last 10 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, whatever there is before. So subhanAllah, look how the care. And then after that, then the Prophet ﷺ says, Lillahi fihi layla. Yeah? To Allah, in this month it belongs at a night. So the idea of something special, something unique now. Yeah. خير من ألف شهر. It's better than 1,000 months. So all these things develop that longing, develop that love, and the fear comes after. Prophet said, after saying that it's better than 1,000 months, he said, "Man hurima khayruha faqad hurim." The one who's deprived of his good then has surely been deprived. Yeah. So in other words, everything is contained. This is the ultimate talk before Ramadan. It is the words of the Prophet ﷺ. Everything is in that. And that last phrase, what I like to tell people about it is that it doesn't just induce fear, it also induces a lot of hope. Because if you understand the construct, the phrasing, on the one hand, it's saying, if you miss out, you miss out. On the other hand, you can read it like this. What did you do? How on earth did you miss out? It's so much in your grasp to achieve its khair. You had to have done something crazy to have missed out on it. So there's a lot of hope in that as well. And Allah Jalla didn't gift us this season to make us fearful and think that we can't attain it. I think that's something we need to speak about as well. What happens to people, their mindsets in Ramadan, and how you can, from within, lock yourself out from reaping the benefits of the month.
You mentioned attain it, and you've mentioned Allah's kind of given us the circumstances to achieve. What is it that we're trying to attain?
In that same hadith, in another variant narration, the wording says, وَيُنَادِ مُنَادٍ, and a caller says, يَا بَاغِيَ الْخَيْرِ أَقْبِلْ. O desire of good, come forward. Come, chase it. يَا بَاغِيَ الشَّرِّ أَقْصِرْ. O desire of evil, resist, cease. And then the Prophet said, لله أتقاء من النار وذلك بكل ليلة. To Allah, in this month, He frees people from the hellfire, and that is something that happens every single night. So that's what we're after. We're after that salvation. We're after that deliverance. And this month has the ibadah with a host of other types of worships, but the specific act of worship that develops a person to hopefully achieve that goal. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Yeah, the ayah. Only 5 ayat about Ramadan and fasting in the whole of Quran. In Surah Al-Baqarah. Oh, you believe fasting has been prescribed upon you, just as it has been prescribed upon those before you. لعلكم تتقون, so that you may achieve taqwa. This taqwa is what delivers for a person. It's a mechanism. Allah gives us a tool to develop ourselves, to achieve mastery over our nafs, so that when we do control it and align our behaviors and conduct in a way which is pleasing to Allah, then Jannah becomes assured. Why do I say that? What does Allah say in Surah An-Nazi'at? He says, فَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. The one who fears the standing of his Lord and forbids his nafs from its desire. Not lawful desire, unlawful desire. Then Jannah will be that person's resting place, place of refuge. So we're seeking Allah's forgiveness. We're seeking Allah's acceptance. We're seeking Jannah. We're seeking delivery from the hellfire. Allah's gifting us a season that can do that. من صام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. Whoever fasts the month of Ramadan with iman and ihtisab, longing, desiring for that reward, yeah, Allah forgives him all his sins. And the Prophet said the same thing, Man qama, whoever stands Ramadan. And he said the same thing, Man qama laylatul qadr, whoever stands laylatul qadr. The same consequence reward is mentioned. Allah will forgive him all his past sins. This is what we're after. As well as the things that are embedded within it. Because, you know, the fasting is one of those ways that help a person develop real intimacy with Allah Jalala. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah says that, you know, unlike anything else, fasting is for Him and He rewards it. How do you understand this hadith? Because everything is supposed to be for Him and He rewards everything.
How do we improve that? Because sometimes I might be fasting and I'm not feeling that. I'm sure others can relate as well in terms of that connection. Sometimes it just feels like I'm thirsty and hungry. How do I achieve that? Because the way you said it is to improve your intimacy, that connection with Allah. It just sounds like something that'd be really nice.
It's to improve, not to necessarily have it. Make a distinction here. You know, we use the word spirituality, but it's a word that doesn't belong, it's foreign to our religion. If we don't understand it, if we're going to use it, we need to understand what it means and how to use it, right? So the idea of tasting a sweetness in worship is not a precondition to engaging in worship. And the idea that you sense some dryness in your worship doesn't mean that it's not worship. Yeah, the feelings you have are the fruits of the worship. You may experience them, you may not, but, and this is why I said the word spirituality can be problematic. How it's understood outside our deen is that it's what is seeking, for most of the people who are seeking spirituality outside of Islam, and they're trying different things, right? What they're ultimately looking for, pleasure of the self. Oh, the Muslim is ubudiyya, pleasure of Allah. Yeah, of course, pleasure of Allah will definitely be the greatest way in which you will achieve pleasure of the self. But it's not that if I don't immediately feel it, then I don't worship, right? But that's balanced against the other side, which you're right to say, which is that I do need to take care of my heart, and Allah does want presence. Yeah, so we get these two extremes, and it's a good discussion here for Ramadan, because we either get the people who feel that they won't engage if they don't feel. So what they've done, therefore, is they've made their spirituality consumption rather than devotion. Meaning something that I have to feel the sweetness to be able to do it. Yeah,
I'm not feeling it.
yeah.
But what would that look like? Consumption, is that like?
Yeah, you see it's something material. You're seeing
yeah.
something, you know, it's not something divine. It's not something, you're not coming here as a slave as such, right?
So you're talking about mindset, approach, mindset.
It reminds me of
mindset.
what you were saying about Imam Nawawi a lot. It goes back down to sort of intention. Like not doing it because I want that feeling of.
But what I'm saying, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a thing, and it's a thing to aim for. But just don't see it as a precondition for engaging in worship. And then the opposite side is that one, right? Where people are, and you might get this in Ramadan, people are showing an image of what you got to achieve. You got to achieve so much. And it's right for scholars to try and raise the bar. It's right for them to try and tell people to do so much, right? But the quantity itself is not the issue. Again, spirituality is not production. It's presence as well. So you need devotion with presence.
Can you give an example of that? Is that like, okay, I'm not praying, whether I pray 20, whether I pray 8, it's about.
So what happens here, and this is a reality, right? So it's not blaming anybody. We all can feel this, right? The pressure of comparison, right? Especially families, right? And, you know, look, the deen, right, has both idealism and realism, right? So when you put a model there to emulate, it's something good. It's not a flaw. It's himmah. I want to achieve great heights. Okay, that's fine. But realism is fiqh. It's being aware of yourself, being aware of your time, being aware of your capacity, being aware of your context, right? So
What does himma mean?
himma means to have lofty aspirations. Yeah, and that's can be connected to something of an ideal standard you want to achieve, to aspire towards. But I'm saying we make them both work. So a family should say, for example, what could they say? They say, look, when we're hearing something, right? Especially if you're hearing someone speak, or you're seeing someone's amazing production, yeah, production, even presence in Ramadan, right? Look, it's curated. You're seeing their highlights. You're not seeing their dips. So don't think everybody is just on some pure, amazing, angelic level, right? So take inspiration. Don't take verdicts. That I've got to produce that. If I don't, then somehow my Ramadan is problematic. Take direction. Don't take someone else's pace. Yeah. So compare yourself not to somebody else, or you compare your family not to another family's. Compare it to your own meaningful growth. Yeah. This is so important, and we've got to balance this. That you'd never want to say that to people that don't aspire. But what we've got to be careful is that a person doesn't come away feeling that if I don't hit this high, amazing standard, right, then it's not worth it. Because then what happens? What happens? People, in attempt just for quantity, for example, will either fake it, or they'll burn out, or they'll give up. Yeah.
Does that boil down to sincerity?
No, not just sincerity. Fiqh as well. Having the fiqh of your own nafs, having the fiqh of your family.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, an understanding of where you are with capacity, understanding of where you are, what your context's like, understanding of what's possible. So fiqh of yourself, fiqh of your family.
So we're saying family A, taking consideration their circumstances and their situation, makes a plan to do A, B, C in Ramadan. Family B, because they have a different context, they can take inspiration from family A for the plan, but really the better way of doing it, what I'm trying to understand from Sheikh, is actually look at your own circumstances. I mean, if you've got family members who are proficient in reading Quran, and they're reading and they do khatam every 7-10 days, and you got family members who are struggling to read Quran, you can't have the same goal, right?
Exactly.
Because you're setting yourself up
It's
for failure.
exactly what I'm saying. So take the inspiration,
Families
not
do
the
that.
pace.
If
No.
families compare like
Individuals do, for sure, because I get that end, isn't it? I get people. See, what happens is either you'll get people who feel like they're being, there's a guilt, right? And this the biggest worry is this. It's fine to feel worried about not doing enough, but what happens if your whole month is just you're on edge, and you keep worrying only, am I doing enough? And you're not tasting anything of the ibadah, then there's something wrong there. You understand?
It's almost like a lack of
It's not come from a bad place, by the way. What I'm saying is just people need to understand how to relate to this. But go on, what were you going to say?
no, Sheikh, just on the hope part. I find sometimes because if you don't have realistic goals, then because you're always chasing something which is unattainable, you almost, like you said, you don't you lose the ability to feel the sweetness of what you're actually achieving. And then sometimes what that might do is actually stop you from progressing, because you needed that the sweetness, but you needed to actually acknowledge that you have achieved something, and in your context it actually might be very good, and then that will motivate you to actually do more. But if you haven't had that first part of actual recognition of what you've actually achieved yourself, right, then you're not going to push on, because you actually think, oh, I haven't reached that level. And the reason I say it is because, for example, my own kids, right, as they get older, my daughter's 8, she wants to fast, right, and we have like the tradition anyway. You start with half a fast. I mean, it's not as half a fast, right? Yeah. But just do it for a few hours, right? And then you increase the hours, and you've given. You're not gonna say, like, for her, you say, oh, you know what? To be a really good Muslim, you should fast all 30 days. And she's 8 years old, right? We take that into consideration. Sometimes I don't think we do that to ourselves as adults.
Very good.
We look at someone.
you're not allowed to do half a fast, I do. Those days are gone. Those days are gone.
Those days used to
But in
exist.
other dimensions, I get your
Yes.
point. Yeah, I get your point. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously the minimal obligations everybody has to achieve anyway, right? But beyond that, it does require a level of fiqh awareness of what's possible. And yes, have stretch goals, but your stretch goals should be on the back of success in those goals that are not stretched. Yeah, if you understand. So, like you said, an example: imagine somebody who is not even picking up the Quran every day, right? And they say to themselves, "I'm going to achieve 5 khatams." What's the likelihood that they will be able to do that? And if they get affected by not achieving that pace and then just leave it, the Sharia doesn't want that. Yeah, the Sharia doesn't want that. Yeah, so stretch in a way which it's a yeah it's it there is a bit of no comfort, because as we say, there's no, to grow you got to come out your comfort zone. But if it's beyond what is really possible, then you're only setting up yourself up for a failure, which you then become guilty about, which you then become you abandoned. And why we focus on this, just happen to focus on it, I think it was good anyway, is that, believe me, right now, you may find this strange, but because the work I do right now, there are people, okay, being stressed at the idea that Ramadan is about to come.
In what sense?
Because of the idea of the pressure they put on themselves about what they need to achieve. So instead of right now a longing, a yearning.
Where do you think that comes from, though? That that type of psychology, where
Yeah.
Ramadan hasn't come and
Yeah.
I'm stressful about the fact that, am I going to do enough? What kind of is that? It could easily, that could be waswas in a sense.
It can
right?
be, but also,
What is
a
that? Is
person's
that
reflecting on their past years. They're reflecting on the fact that they've set so many goals and haven't achieved them. So there's that. Then you've got on the airwaves, Ramadan, make the most of it. Even I just said at the beginning,
that doesn't
it's a
sound
month. If you lose out that night, you lose out on all goodness. So those things build up pressure.
It sounds like an unhealthy mindset.
No, but what I'm saying is it's a real one that occurs. And it is unhealthy. That's why I said to you in the beginning, I said to you, there are people who will lock themselves out from within. So it needs addressing. Yeah? It needs addressing to understand what? As Allah is al-Ghafur Rahim. Allah is a Shakur. He amply rewards for the small that you do. That if you turn to Him, He turns to you quicker. That He didn't gift you Ramadan to make you fail. That, and have no shock in what I'm about to say, that He wants khair for you more than you want it for yourself. Have no doubt about that.
So would I be wrong in saying that this kind of mindset is kind of on a spectrum, right? On one hand, you might have people who see Ramadan as a burden. I have to fast. I'm not normally praying. I'm not normally doing anything. Yet those people exist, and there are a lot of people.
Oh, that's a different category. Yeah, we haven't spoken about those. Yeah.
On the other side of the spectrum, you have people who are, even before Ramadan has come, they have burdened themselves with a sense of guilt that kind of overlooks the mercy and the opportunity and the spiritual connection of it. Whereas in the middle, there's, okay, I recognize the month as a month of immense opportunity that Allah has given me, a month where I can take my name out of the people of hellfire and put it in the people of Jannah, right? And I now need to focus on what my capability is, internally reflect and become more sincere in this path. That's more like the middle.
Yeah, and subhanAllah, become more sincere. You mentioned something really good there, which does help, which is like sometimes we have a mindset of just only achievement. We should have a mindset of identity. So this will help us. Instead of saying, I need to complete 2 khatams of Quran, ask yourself, what kind of person am I becoming before the Quran? Yeah. What kind of person am I as a musalli?
Musalli needs someone to
Praise, someone who prays. So
Depending,
not just the idea of I'm going to hit all the rawatib and extra sunnah. You understand? They're so important, but don't come away from that issue we said about the presence. Not just production. We need presence.
So, Sheikh, depending on where I am on this spectrum,
Yeah,
I would ask different questions to myself.
that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I'm on this end, I'm not thinking necessarily that.
That's right.
I'd be asking,
Yeah.
like, what would you say would be like an ideal target for people on each part of these sort of spectrums? Your typical person, for example, who might be attending Jummah, right? And they're fasting, they're attending Jummah, they're doing, but they might not necessarily be so strict on the
So
Salah.
for them,
And then you've got the
Ramadan,
middle, and then you've got the end.
for
So
them,
the target for
yes,
each.
for them, Ramadan is what? They need to think of it as a vacation. Yeah, they're taking time out. Yes, it's a holiday. Yeah, taking time out from their normal daily grind, and it's a vacation like no other. It's an opportunity for them to reconnect to their purpose, to their creator, right? Taste the sweetness of thinking about your Lord, reconnecting with the reason why you're here. Yeah. These are huge things, Yani, because that when you change the mindset, as we'll say, right? If you want to change behaviors, fine. There's lots of things you can do there. But if you want to have breakthroughs in behaviors, change your mindsets, right? Change the way you see things, right? So if a person now was to see Ramadan as an opportunity to reconnect to my purpose, then everything else will flow from that, inshallah.
That's amazing. I gave you the example that these people on this end of the spectrum, they see Ramadan as potentially burdensome in a sense, right? But you're saying no, the mindset needs to change. See it as a vacation, a holiday from your normal grind.
Yes.
Where you're, that mindset
Opportunity
is
to breathe, opportunity to sense rahmah, to sense mercy. That mercy is real. The moment that night kicks in, the mercy is there. The gates of Jannah opened and the gates of hellfire closed. The shayateen are locked up. That means mercy is evident even more and sensed and felt.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Do you have any practical targets for people on that end of the spectrum that they can try to work towards?
Well, I don't think it's good to make, because even in that, there'll be a huge spectrum. Yeah, Ahmed. So the moment I say something, I'm going against my whole point, which is don't, have a target that is relative. Yeah, that is meaningful, that takes you out of comfort, that stretches you a bit, whatever that means.
Okay, so that will
I
require.
guess that's actually that's if you.
That's
look
the same
if that's
formula
the lens-
everywhere.
Yeah, if you take that as the lens that you're going to look at
Through all of the spectrum.
yeah,
It's so important. And so even on the opposite end, those who excel normally, they will have targets that are greater. So when we read the Salaf, and see how they are with Quran when the month kicks in, you're amazed, right? But the idea that you take that and prescribe that for every single Muslim and the family is incorrect, because you've completely cut out their context.
So now we're talking.
The fiqh of their nafs and where they were.
So now we're talking about the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, Shafi rahimahullah, it's mentioned that he did 60 khatams.
in the month of Ramadan.
Month of Ramadan, right? How many of the Salaf there is mentioned that they've done they've completed Quran in one rak'ah? You see, this is a level that is for this class of people. And again, like I said, the issue is idealism, right? We aspire to great things, but it must also be countered with your reality. So you take inspiration, like I said before, take direction, right? But don't take the same verdict unless it applies for you because of who you are and where you are, what you achieved. This why I think this formula helps. It helps what? It'll help people get more out of the month. It'll help people right now yearn for it rather than feel so anxious with so much anxiety that the idea of Ramadan coming is paining them. Can you imagine? It sounds strange, I saw your face when I said it earlier. But this is the reality. Yeah. Because of that, the expectation that they have formulated within themselves from whatever stream, whatever means, whatever they've heard, whatever they've done in their past, and so on, right, becomes so overwhelming. It becomes like there's a grief at the idea of a sadness and a worry at the idea of Ramadan about to turn up.
And for those listeners who might be thinking that sounds almost like a positive thing because I'm nowhere near that kind of quote unquote righteousness, you're saying, no, that's actually not healthy.
No, because Allah doesn't want you to be like that. You see, this is like it's going towards despair, And the Prophet ﷺ, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal hazan. Famous dua which is recited morning and evening. It starts off with this most amazing prayer: Allah, oh Allah, I seek refuge from ham, thoughts that preoccupy about what's to come, wal hazn, thoughts that preoccupy about what has come to pass. That you think about them in such a way that they cause a problem in your life, right? If you think about what's to come in a way which helps you act, good. But if it makes you become incapacitated, it's problematic. If you think about the past in a way which helps your now, very good. But if it's in a way in which it keeps you stuck in the past and you're no longer able to act for your welfare, problematic. And this is what you're seeking refuge in. Because you see, the issue is if you are in the future or you're in the past, it means you're not in the present. And if you're not in the present, you can't act. So getting pushed forward into imagined realities or kept back into things that did never occur, should have been, it takes you away. It takes you away where Shaitan wants you, right? Allah wants a believer to be in the present, because it is in the present where you act and you can achieve for yourself. So yes, a believer is anxious. He's anxious about what abode they will be in the hereafter. But what does that do? It makes them work. A believer is sad about things they committed in the past. But what does that make them do? Makes them repent and do better. So as long as those feelings, emotions, psychological sort of states, if they're pushing you towards good action, then fine. But what the Prophet is seeking refuge from in this dua are the type of anxiety, the type of grief that is buckling you at your knees in such a way, as in the hadith in the Sunan, Abu Umama is in the masjid and a time for not prayer, and the Prophet is seeing him, said, what's brought you at the time there's not prayer? And he says these things. He says, Humumun lazamatni. Humum means anxious thoughts, and this lazamatni means that just overwhelmed me. It's buckled him, made him fall to the ground, and says, and debt too. So challenges and pressures of life, right? So when they make a person unable to act, this is what Shaitan wants. And
What did the Prophet ﷺ say to him?
he taught him this dua. He said, should I not teach you words? If you to say the morning and evening, Allah Jalala will do away with your thoughts and repay your debt. He said, of course, Ya Rasulullah. So the Prophet is giving him agency here. And you can do something about it, even though it's a dua, but dua is the most comprehensive, one of the most amazing duas. He's giving agency. You can do something. Do this. So he did it, anhu, and he said that, and Allah did away with those thoughts and paid off his debt. And by the way, this Abu Mama, trying to look into which Abu Mama is, there's quite a few, but there's only one that actually fits his profile, right? Because some Abu Mamas were too young, some were not from the Ansar. You know who this Abu Mama could be? You know, the first 6 that gave bay'ah to the Prophet in Makkah, the first pledge, he was of those 6. And he said he was the first one to do it. He's the one who received Mus'ab bin Umair anhu, when the Prophet sent him before Hijrah to give da'wah in Medina. He's the person whose home was the center of da'wah in the Medina before the Prophet arrives. He's one whom the Prophet personally, buried him. In other words, the dua is not just for the weak, it's for those the strong. It's for the weight bearers, for the carriers. And the most amazing thing about this same dua is in Anas ibn Malik anhu, in the Sahih, who served the Prophet ﷺ for 10 years. He says this was a frequent supplication of the Prophet ﷺ. Served him for 10 years. So when he says something like that, it means something. Of the Prophet ﷺ? Yes. Prophet, messenger of Allah, making dua frequently to seek refuge in those 8 things. And this first pair is the one we spoke about. Because, like I said, those things inside you, right? How you see things, how you think about things, can be the primary matters that hamper your welfare and you seeking your welfare.
So, Sheikh, can a deeper point be made on that hadith as well? You said that this dua isn't just for the weak, it's for the strong.
Yes.
So, can we also say that the strong is kind of a mental health related point, right? Will also feel deep anxiety and worry about all these other kind of things and might withdraw from certain spaces as a result of as a
That's
result
why
of the
it's incorrect just to say that's a sign of weak iman. It's incorrect.
Mhm.
It could be, maybe not. Incorrect to be definitive in that way. It's not necessarily so at all. Yeah.
You just remind me of one of the points, Sheikh, you were saying before, that Ramadan is for everyone. For wherever you are on the spectrum, the mercy of Allah is for everyone. And the opportunity of saving yourself from the hellfire and attaining ultimate salvation is for everyone. Regardless of where you are on the spectrum, it's for you. Allah has curated this month for you, and therefore you can attain salvation and attain the things you require in this month, regardless of where you are on the spectrum.
How do you know, Adil, that your basic struggle to achieve something minimal, how do you know that that's not better before Allah than someone's most amazing effort in Ramadan? How do you know? Allah's looking at your sincerity, your sidq. Allah's looking at your effort. Yeah. Yours. It may outshine. Yeah, as the Prophet, as the he said, yeah, niyatul mu'min ablagu min amalihi. It's one of the most amazing statements. The intention of a believer outstrips his action. What do I mean by this? It means that you're bound by circumstance. You're bound by the realities of energy, being fatigued, things being available for you, the need to sleep. Okay, so your actions are constrained by all those things, but the niyyah is unbound. The intention is unbound, and that can outstrip. So somebody could be asleep in their bed, and they're outstripping somebody who's doing activity elsewhere because of intention. We're not trying to be dismissive of actions here. We need to act. We need to achieve so much. Here, we're just making a relative discussion on the superiority of intention, and it outstrips the action, that sincerity. So how do you know someone's sidq with Allah, yeah, who is doing something basic, could be greater before Allah Jalla Ala than someone else? That doesn't discourage us, to that we don't need to act. No, because we don't know. The answer is we don't know, but it can be. And because you don't know, you need to try and do as much good as you can with as much care and presence as you can. No one will deny that. But it's all relative to the person, all relative to their family. As long as they are trying to achieve meaningful growth, that's important.
Okay. Sheikh, I had a question. Initially you said that Allah has prepared the month for us to kind of succeed and things like that. How do you think culture plays a role in that? To be more specific, I guess, with my question, because it's quite broad, is that how do you think, for example, our own cultural...
You know what came to mind right now? Something kind of, I don't know what the word is, horrific, I heard just a few days ago. You speak about culture, how new culture, there's aspects of old culture that are not helpful, right? I guess you want to go that way. Are there, usually when we speak about culture, Ramadan, many times it's we speak about aspects of culture that are not helpful, right? I remember growing up, and the culture back in East Africa was they'll play cards at night, Ramadan nights, families play cards. It was seen as a place of time and joy and family connection, right? Which are all correct, but it's manifestation in playing cards. You see, right? So, people are not as aware, right? Now, what I heard the other day was really shocking. That what's happening some places right now is that people are getting together and having like 30 nights of dresses, where people are being, like groups of sisters will be invited. Each one has a different house. It goes, and you have to have a different dress on.
Like iftar party every night with the different.
But it's 30 dresses of Ramadan, and each one has to have 30 dresses, and it's a different house each night. So that's definitely not helpful, right? We can all agree on that. That is not Ramadan, right? It's not Ramadan.
Normally,
Yeah.
things like that are like packaged in a. We're gonna fundraise for a particular charity and things like that.
No,
Would that still?
it wasn't presented to me that way.
Not
but
that way.
but yeah, it's problematic. But yeah, so look, a culture, right, can pose a problem if there are cultural expectations on the wife, on having to host and cook so much different meals. It's all about education, okay, and trying to um, you know try and just put at bay what you can about that, right? Sometimes somebody has concern but has no influence in the matter, right? So halas lillah, ask Allah Jalla to reward you for that. But if you have control, if you are able to influence it, then the more you reserve the days and the nights for any means of getting closer to Allah, that is better. I don't mean by that burn people out, burn your family out. You've got to recite non-stop. You've got to watch every single education documentary. No, sometimes children can't do that. You have to do that in a balanced way. But the idea of lessening what you normally do, which take you away, from Allah, that is what you're trying to aim for. So that again is a relative thing. So if you can introduce that in your children, lessen your time in computers, lessen your time in frivolous stuff. So they appreciate the idea of this month is special. So don't hard code it that they go from, for example, I don't know, I'm just making up, right? 5 hours of gaming to 0 minutes, right? Will that work? What will happen? I don't know. You can. But the idea they realize that 5 hours goes down to an hour only, they've understood something about, giving this month's, its regard, right? So, their culture, some different things, can have an impact one way and other. And also hosting, there's a flip side, right? The need to, the good thing of hosting, right? Especially those who are breaking fast is good. But then again, try and do it in such a way, in a more optimal way, right? You don't want to host in such a way your whole night is gone for yourself and those people you've invited. Yeah. And
Because that can sometimes take priority, right? The actual hosting aspect of it rather than the worship aspect of things.
well, that's what happens, isn't it? That's what happens, isn't it? That's what happens.
You also have the flip side where you have maybe the zeal to make sure you don't waste any time, holds you back from maybe family engagements, being present in where family bonds are being kept. and
That's
overpassed.
very important point, Adam.
And all of a sudden, this family and the person who's meant to be kind of the religious one, or the one who's kind of giving good vibes out to everyone, isn't present.
Yeah, so that person is looking at themselves only. They're not looking at their role in a wider way. Okay, and again, it just depends, right? But you'd want some presence because you want to be a person of influence, right? You want to be a person of influence in this month. Okay, and sometimes again, benefiting people can be more beneficial than just benefiting yourself. It's just transitive, right? But if a person can take a share of everything, that's the balance. That's the balance. Take a share of everything. But you're right. Your point is good, because even in families, are we just all made up of individuals doing our own thing, or are we as a family together? Was it parallel? Just all separate. So the mixture is what is good. There's a time just for you and a time for your family. Okay, so trying to get that that you never get. This idea of balance. A person will never be able to have balance in their life and it remain balanced. They'll taste it now and again. I say it is more like a bandwidth. You have a bandwidth. It's not just a single line balance. It's a bandwidth, right? And you go like this. As long as you don't cross lines in a detrimental way, where it's this pure neglect, right? But the idea is to strive for balance. But the idea you will walk that tightrope of balance. Oh, so many things in your life, so many factors that pull you this way, this moment. Something you got to give here, something you got to compromise here. That's life. But the idea of it is good. But just realize that it's more of a bandwidth than a tightrope.
So we had a question from online from one of the family events attendees and somebody who's joined to the Instagram page. So if you're not on the Instagram page, make sure you join. They asked the question, how can I make Ramadan beneficial for my kids? Something along that line. How can I make Ramadan helpful for my children?
So I guess what ages are important to know. Ages, right? So because different age groups, you think different things would appeal to them. So that's one thing that would need to know, right? But you see, what I like to say is that children feed off parents, right? So what do you reflect? Yeah. Do you reflect a sense of joy, a sense of happiness, good expectations? Do you fill the room with that vibe, right? Model the very thing you want to see in your children. There's no greater wasila, no greater method of tarbiyah, than modeling. Nothing can trump it. So, what would be beneficial for you? And then see how that can be translated. So, and obviously, the specific answers will be to the specific situations, with the children. What again, it's the fiqh that's required. Understanding yourself, understanding your children. Think about what would appeal to them. Would just spending some time with them, reading something, going over, watching an Islamic episode, taking them somewhere that's connected to da'wah work, feeding people, giving them some sort of autonomy in in developing a project with yourself. There's so many things, right? So many things. But usually, what I say, or what's important, I think, is if we can always remember, just model the very thing you want to see. Yeah, model the very thing you want to see. That and human beings and children will be naturally attracted to that. So that's why I say that the family events, the fikr of it, and the slogan connected to it, is so critical.
I was just about to mention that
Yeah,
actually.
it's so
About
critical.
love living Islam.
Yeah, it's
And
not. That's
instilling
not
that
a.
love
It's not a
in the
gimmicky
kids,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, the idea is this: is that the happiest family is the Muslim family. How on earth can there be a more happier family in this dunya, yeah, more than the family that is recognizing Allah and submitting to Him? Yeah. So, do we project that? People should see that and say, "I want that." Yeah. So it's an enormous challenge with children because of their ages and what they get outside, their peer groups or school or whatever, and the attractions that are connected to that. So the the family has to have within it not just do's and don'ts, It's not enough to help the child that they're growing up in this society, because everything outside is don'ts and do's the other way around.
Yeah.
You see? So what is it you're going to have inside? Yeah. What kind of atmosphere, environment, affection, love, joy? Yeah. What kind of joy are you going to show? Yeah. And that has to come, has to be, you have to lead by example.
I think that it brings me on to a point. I was listening to one of the other Mashaykh were mentioning a point on a clip on social media that the husband comes home from work and they've had all the pressures of work and they've been working all day. By the time they actually get into the household, the version of them being given to their wife and to the kids is a depleted version, right? And not because he wants to be depleted, but just because of the nature of work and life taking over. So once he goes home, the kids are seeing someone who may be short tempered, maybe preoccupied, or maybe just wants to relax and turn off because he's been so busy at work, right? But that's not the version you should be when you go home, right? It's not the version your wife should be seeing of you or receiving you when you go home. And in Ramadan, it's almost like sometimes amplified when you have some brothers, mashallah, and it doesn't matter what size they are. Sometimes they're the slimmest brothers, mashallah, and they miss a meal. SubhanAllah, it's like the world's going to end. So fasting for them can be really, really challenging. And you see like almost like a change in their nature because they haven't been able to eat all day, right? And I'm conscious of the viewers, brothers and sisters watching that it not just be the short fuse or the anger. It might be other characteristics. But in the month of Ramadan, we don't take a moment to check ourselves in what those elements are for us as individuals, and then make sure they don't have a negative impact on our family, on our kind of gatherings, especially on the kids. From family events perspective, Love Living Islam, if we could almost create a retreat for a month where the kids were learning, everyone was happy, they were worshipping Allah, it would be amazing. And subhanAllah, Allah has done that for us in the month of Ramadan, where actually you are, it's easier to pray Qiyam because everyone's praying Tarawih. So you're praying Qiyam every single night, right? And sometimes you don't reflect, oh, why was it easier for me to stand in these 30 nights in the masjid for 2 hours and outside of Ramadan when I'm on my own, right? It's not so easy.
It's kind of like what
It's like a
Sheikh said
meal.
earlier. It is like a vacation, isn't it?
Yeah, subhanAllah.
It's difficult what you mentioned, though, and you're right. Ramadan cultivates, but it also exposes. Yeah, and there's no harm in exposure as long as the believer is reflecting, as you said, right? It reveals something. If you reflect on it and then make change. And by the way, the change you're making here, asking for, it's not all your moments to be perfect, all your moments never to have, a short-tempered, event or whatever. No, have more moments which are pleasing and beneficial, and less moments of the other. Allah doesn't is not asking for perfection. It's asking for proportion. Okay, and and so always remember this. Try and have more moments that are pleasing to Allah, that are helpful for you, helpful for the family, and part of that does come from reflecting on yourself. So again, Ramadan, excellent point I think you mentioned, is reveal, and people can tire, but there's things we can do. You see, so this month is a month of training before Ramadan, right? Sometimes nobody fasts other than Ramadan, so then it hits them. But if you were to fast Mondays and Thursdays, if you were to fast now and again, if you were to fast a few days even now before Ramadan comes, habituate yourself a little bit so that you're more ready. So that's just one small strategy. The other one is um, try and see if you can target the month of Ramadan for less work time off. Yeah, it's worthy of that. See how Allah Jalla has prepared it in a divine sense, right? And see what's available for you. So if there was any time that you would want to target for time off, it'd be this one, right? And lastly, we outside Ramadan we have to compensate. If we weren't able to do it, if there were challenges, then make sure there's always quality time, right, for yourself, or your spouse, for your children. Quality time is critical, and if you can't achieve something here, try at least achieve it there. So that becomes very important.
Some of the answers that you're giving, right?
Bit
It
heavy.
seems deliberately vague.
Okay.
Vague. But I feel, no, right now they're really practical steps, but it does seem deliberately vague. But I think that's because it fits within the concept, the message that you're trying to put across, which is, correct me here, right? Which is, it's relative to each individual and where they are. They have to hold themselves accountable and where they are, and regardless of where they are on the spectrum, to try to improve minor parts or as much as they can, but not to be disheartened if it's not too much, because that's not what things are. It's more about progress than anything else. So if I'm somebody who's not very, if I don't read the Quran often, then perhaps a target for me might be, I have to measure my targets in accordance to that. If I'm somebody who might read it a lot outside of Ramadan, then I might push myself again a bit beyond it. So that's perhaps why it's like same thing with the children,
Yeah.
same thing with the family.
Yeah.
You have to assess where your family are right now,
Yes.
and then be realistic and merciful, and at the same time aspire to achieve the most you can and have that kind of balance.
It can't be anything other than bespoke.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just fiqh of Sharia, it's fiqh of nafs. They have to combine together. Yeah. So I'll give you a list: Quran, Taraweh, Rawatib, Sunnah, Dua. That still is a abstract list that needs to be applied in a context amongst a particular person, amongst people, family, and there are factors that decide beyond, as I said, the minimum obligations. Yeah, so the obligations that are for everyone, regardless of your state, who you are. We all know what they are. But then after that, there are things that govern, right, what you should do. So, for example, give you an example. People ask the question: should I memorize the Quran in Ramadan, or should I just read? Yeah, or should I read? Or should I study with contemplation? Yeah, you always get these questions. So what's the answer? What's the answer? Well, how would you see it?
I mean, that's a good question.
Yeah.
What's the answer, Sheikh? I always thought it was because of the reward of recitation is multiplied. You do that as much as you can.
Yeah, but you're looking at the perspective of reward. What about the perspective of returns?
The reward was returns. What do you mean by returns?
Returns on your iman. Returns on your growth.
So it all depends on context, right?
Yeah, you can't change it. You can't change it. So imagine somebody who can't even read properly, and he's away from Quran, but he could spend a couple of hours a day or an hour a day learning what those words mean. You wouldn't say to him, read, don't learn, and somebody's away from Quran. You understand? So again, the point is, first of all, if you can make them not conflict, then have a share, whatever, anything you can, right? But there's some people may, for example, be more connected to spending time in dua than dhikr. Someone more spend time in Quran than dhikr, for example, right? Without doubt, there's a focus on Quran. Without doubt, there's a focus on recitation. But remember, again, that context, right? When we're seeing those scholars abandon teaching and just reading Quran, look who they were, look what their life were like, look what they usually do, and then look how they treated this month as a month of exception, and so on and so on. Are you like that? If you're so, then follow it. You see? So follow the whole picture. Don't just take the verdict, right? Follow the whole picture. And could there be an encouragement to recite over reading? The real one that comes together is recite a lot or read with tadabbur, right?
And tadabbur, you mean reflection?
Right. To be honest, scholars differ on this. Yeah, way back, right? Way back. So that's why I like to say that um, uh, w- try and do both, and then beyond the both, where you want to spend even more time, look at the returns it has on you.
Mm.
Returns is not just reward. Returns is what is it doing for your iman. Yeah, that's what you want, and that's bespoke to people.
Yeah.
Bespoke to
Yeah.
people.
No, that makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense, Sheikh. Another question we had was regarding fasting and the impact it can have on mental health, right? So there are some mental health disorders that actually can, fasting in general positively impacts mental health according to a lot of research. But there are some things which can, some disorders which can be negatively impacted, like eating disorders and things like that. So the question was, how do they have to fast? If they have an eating disorder, do they have to fast? Is that something you can answer? Or does
No, I'll give you just a formula. Can't answer it because again, such a question is relevant to the actual person, individual, and it requires medical expertise. It requires to understand the person, right? So all we can say is that if it's true that it will cause a detrimental effect in a substantial way, not just a little bit of, bit of pain or bit of discomfort, and then you quickly repair, right? That you should fast, right? But I'm not saying that's the case. They have to only they can judge. You give people guidelines, and you get medical expertise on that, and then the person has to take ownership for that decision, right? Unless they can't take ownership, and it is an expert has to tell them do it, don't do it, right? But it's connected to that, right? So yeah. So if however it is very clear that it's causes a problem in a significant way, then they are excused from fasting. But all these are ifs, right?
Yeah.
All the ifs. It has to be. Is it true? Is it true in that case, right? Yeah. So usually if somebody was being this question being put to a scholar and he realizes beyond his medical expertise, expertise doesn't have that, then you'd have to find scholars who medical experts who can inform him and who can understand the person's real situation and then come up. But again, most likely most of the time it will come back as a framework for consideration which the person has to apply. Yeah, most of the time they will have to take ownership of that decision.
Okay, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakum.
We had one more question, Sheikh. This is regards to someone who misses the prayers whilst they're fasting. So they're awake for Fajr because it's Ramadan, so they pray Fajr, but then they're at work, and they don't. They may be due to work miss Dhuhr, miss Asr.
Well, this is a problem. This is a problem outside Ramadan, let alone inside Ramadan. This is a problem. Full stop, yeah, Sheikh.
So what that I think many people fall into
Had breakfast and dinner, but in between it was.
yeah basically because iftar, mashallah, there's samosas on the table, there's a spread, so maghrib gets prayed, mashallah. No, I'm it's I do think sometimes if you're not kind of involved with a wide spectrum of people, you may just assume that it's Ramadan, everyone's going to be
Yeah. It's clear. It's clear.
yeah. So what type of advice could you give them in terms of praying? I don't know, it sounds a bit odd for me to say that because so what to pray? That my advice is going to pray.
You gave the answer already.
Yeah.
No, but is the person asking, or is a concerned person wanting to know a strategy of how to talk to that person? Which one is it? Is the person themselves asking, or is it another who wants to think of a strategy to help that person?
No, I think it's this is the person asking because it's I think it's to do with their context of work, that they know that they're going to be at work. They don't have or whatever their circumstances. They don't pray at work.
So so do they realize that this question is just as valid outside Ramadan as inside Ramadan, and it's just as problematic as outside Ramadan as inside Ramadan?
I don't know, but I think that's a good point.
Okay, yeah. So that's important. They need that, and obviously you can understand it's not a fault, a problem for heightened awareness in Ramadan. Take it as a good sign. Take it as a good sign, right? But they need to change the nature of their work so that they don't. There's a difference between circumstances that make somebody, you know, miss a prayer or have to combine a prayer, and between it being, you know, your way that prayers are missed. That you can't at all. Can't be in a situation that happens. You need to work on coming out away from that kind of scenario.
And within the context of Ramadan, if there was, shaitan gets to them maybe and starts saying to them, oh, look, you're not even praying 5 times a day, so why even fasting? Then it's almost like a feeling of guilt for them that, oh, I'm fasting, but I'm not praying because
It's good to have that guilt. So I'm saying it's good, but then it's got to lead to some kind of proactive action.
and what if it leads to it allows a door for shaitan to come in and say, oh, so the point I'm trying to get to,
What you said before. What's the point of fasting if I'm not praying? Yeah, well,
do we say to them, no, actually,
that's shaitanic thinking.
yeah,
Yeah, because then a person wants to fare as well as they can before their Lord, not as less as they can, as worse as they can, right?
So this is probably a question we should have asked a lot earlier, right? Well, two of them. It's going to come in twofolds. But what is one piece of advice you could give to husbands and fathers? And the same thing's going to happen to sisters. What's one piece of advice you can give to sisters?
So for husband and I'll give one for husband and wife. Yeah, there's only 5 ayat in the Quran about Ramadan and fasting, and the fifth ayah, which is the longest one, speaks about a number of different themes, and it starts off by speaking about the idea of the night, because early legislation meant that if you broke fast and fell asleep, then khalas, your fast has started for the next day, right?
I fell asleep at all.
Yeah. So, and that became challenging, especially those who wanted to engage in intimacy and so on. And then it led to certain situations where people were doing it and doubting it and so on things, right? And Allah Jalla gave that concession. But in that same ayah, you get that famous phrasing, which is what? Hunna libasul lakum antum libasul lahun. They are a garment for you and you are a garment for them. Yeah, the spouses. So it's revealed in these 5 ayat in Ramadan. Yeah. So the idea of the spouses being a garment for each other, it's a well-known discussion, and think about what does the garment do. Right? It offers protection. It offers decoration. It offers warmth. It offers security. So reflect on that ayah. Yeah, the spouses should reflect on the ayah, seeing that was revealed in connection to Ramadan, right? And do they do that with each other? Yeah. And how could they do that more? How could they show that in this Ramadan that's coming? Yeah. So that's okay as a suggestion for them. Last thing I'll say for everyone, including the kids, the ayah before that is the ayah of dua. In these 5 ayat, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. Allah says, when my slaves ask you of me, I am close. Yeah, there's a standard discussion about this phrasing of this ayah, which is in contrast to every ayah where Allah says, when they ask you. In those ayat, it's always say, قُل, answer. Here, Allah doesn't say to the Prophet, say. Allah answers himself straight away to show you the proximity. I am close. Ujibu da'wat da'i idha da'an. Yeah, I answer the call of the caller when he calls upon me. So here, the way the ayah is constructed such that Allah is so close that the moment you make dua, you're answered. So be connected to Allah, have those good thoughts, train your children to always make dua. And again, the way you will train them is to model it. Yeah, it's so important, this ayah, to such an extent. Allah is saying, I answer the call of the caller when he calls. In other words, when he calls, there's an answer. So Umar and others said, I'm not concerned about being answered, guaranteed. I'm concerned whether the dua manifests on my tongue. Yeah. So be someone who calls upon Allah for everything. And that's why the scholars always say, Man ulhima ad-du'a faka'annama urida bihi al-ijaba. The one who's given the intrinsic sort of connection to make dua, or just to make dua, it's as if Allah wanted to answer him. Because it's a guarantee. Right? It's just that you don't know how the answer happens different ways. So dua is critical. Dua is critical. Dua is critical. Train yourselves on dua. Train your children on dua.
One final question, right? I think we should have got you a bottle of water. But one final question, Sheikh, right? If there was one piece of advice that you could give to a younger Sheikh Farid, a younger Farid Haibatan before he got married, one.
It's 101, yes.
What
101.
what would it be?
There's so many. Come on. One, hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. نعمتان مغبون فيهما كثير من الناس. Two blessings. Many people don't take the full bargain of them. They become duped. They don't get a good return from it. The Prophet is saying, مغبون فيهما كثير من الناس. الصحة والفراغ. Good health and free time. Amazing hadith, Sahih. Yeah. So I would say to myself, health, you got it. Allah didn't give you illnesses and difficulties like so many other people. Alhamdulillah, Allah give us all afiyah. And you had time. Now you have so many obligations. Yeah. Get the bargain from them. Use them. Subhanallah. This hadith Rasul is a really, a strong one. It hits hard. Hits hard. Which is health and free time. Get the most out of them. So that's what I would tell him.
How would you do that?
What do you mean?
What would you do different in terms of your health or your time? Like you say, make the most out of my
Make use
health.
of it. Achieve more. Do things. There's a lot of time that was wasted. A lot of time was wasted. Yeah, I understand.
I think on that one is you don't appreciate something until you've lost it, and you think, okay, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z once. It's okay. I'm going to get married, and then I'm going to have kids, and then there's some things that you also want to do along that journey, but you don't take into consideration. Oh, it's not just, for example, financial. What they say, your financial situation is going to change once you have get married and you have kids, etc., etc. But also your time. Actually, all of that time that you had on your free time. No, now you have.
What will hurt us the most, and Allah protect us, is our passive nature, right? And not having the sense of urgency to accumulate goodness and khair. And imagine just one dimension. The hadith of Aisha, the Prophet said, "Ma min sa'atin tamur bibni Adam." There's not an hour that passes the son of Adam, لا يذكر الله تعالى فيها, in which he fails to remember Allah, إلا تحسر عليه يوم القيامة, except be a cause of regret for that person on the day of judgment. So this not having that sense of urgency is completely lost on us. The idea of competing with each other for the akhirah is something that is not spoken about enough. It's such a core tenet of the faith. I have to compete with you, you have to compete with me for the akhirah. Yeah. But we don't, we don't have that sense of, I've got to, it's not about competing for the dunyas, for the akhirah. So that is
mindset.
Yeah.
Maybe we have to have another podcast on.
I was asking that question, expecting or hoping for more of a personal insight, right? But really, again, it just fits everything else that you're saying. I mean, you're someone who, without throwing sand in your face, you work in the dawah, you've had projects like the Fortress of the Muslim, and you're thinking, I didn't do enough, right? I could have made more of my time. So maybe that's just a message a lot of us can take with us as well.
No, it's a real for me as well. It's not just it has a reality. There's a reality. I know myself, my time, isn't it? I know more.
I mean, in our time, there were. We had like distractions and stuff. But I think really, many years ago, I think they used to talk about the internet. It used to come, Sheikh. Sheikh, are you from that generation where they used to talk about the internet?
Different, wallahi, so different. Yeah.
Inshallah. And then
Okay.
that's
shall
what
we
we've got
wrap
time
up?
for.
Brothers and sisters, Jazakallah khair for listening. Inshallah ta'ala, you benefited from the podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe, inshallah, on the relevant social media channels. And inshallah ta'ala, we will see you at the next family podcast. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.